Steve, I'll go on to you first. Scraper, what do you think?
This game surprised me. Like I wasn't for some reason, even though I saw the Labradex Studios, I saw them make a lot of like posts on Reddit, and I saw the game being talked about a lot. And I want to try every relevant title, so I knew I had to play it. And I'll say that it really surprised me. Like, the game is deeper than I expected. Like, it has a lot of moving parts. It has lots of mechanisms. It has depth to it. They call the current release, I guess, episode 1. I remember seeing reference to it. So, I think it's there was a quote by Upload here on the video, and it said, "It's a game to keep your eye on." And I really, really agree with that statement. Like, this is a game to keep your eye to either straight up buy now. I think it's worth it. Like, it seems like a really good game. But it's also a game, if you're not ready to take the leap, it is worth keeping an eye on, because I think I could see them putting a lot more work into it in terms of future episodes, and really stretching this universe out. Like, they've got a foundation here that can definitely grow a lot.
So you go through the opening sequence where you find yourself in a ship which is hovering down over onto a city, which actually is incredibly immersive. I thought that section itself was really good. So you can look out of the window and see this city slowly getting closer, and then you land on a landing pad. But while you're in there, you're sort of it sort of reminded me in some ways of like Aliens. So you've got like this army situation, you've got all these military people around you, which you are part of. And then once you land on this deck, you are placed into this pod, which, so you see, the thing is, the big contradiction for me is like, I expected this game to be on foot first person shooter, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not that. You're in a pod which you are traveling around in. And at first I was a little bit hesitant to delve into that. I'm not too sure if I actually enjoyed that originally. But to Steve's point, I think this is sort of, it's not quite AAA, but it's definitely AA, and I enjoyed what they've done in terms of creating an atmosphere, in terms of creating these NPCs that you can interact with in a relatively realistic way. You know, it's not by a huge studio or anything like that, so they've got limitations, but it's good enough for what they're trying to do. Anthony, how much have you played of this game, and what did you think?
Like, I've been following Scraper for a long time, where I saw like these old screenshots from a long time ago, and this game's been in development for a long time, and I didn't know who Labradex was, never heard of them. And so I thought, this is another amateur thing. It's going to be amateur hour. And I thought it would be very similar to something like Experiment Gone Rogue, like where they're ambitious, they're trying to do something, but where it would fall short. But then playing this game, no, this is pretty darn close to AAA. Like, when they put you in there in the early part of the game, I feel like I'm in some kind of like sci-fi movie a little bit. I have a couple of criticisms about this game. The music is great too, by the way. This is another game with really good like background orchestra that kind of makes you feel like you're in a movie, which I do really like that. And that cipher guy, that AI intelligence at the end, like, I haven't gotten far enough to deal with him yet, but I love the voice that they use for him. And I think there could be a cool story that is going on as well. But in terms of negatives, this game crashed on me a number of times. I don't know if it crashed for you guys ever. I fired it up a number of different times. It crashed on me.
On that point, Anthony, I didn't, just to mention, I didn't have any of those problems actually, and
Neither
I
did
played
I.
it for a fair amount of time as well. So yeah, it's a
Okay.
strange one that way. Is yeah.
Yeah, not sure, but anyway, that was happening for me a little bit here and there. The other complaint I have, and this, I've had people say, no, you don't, that there's good combat here, but one of the problems I had with the combat is I would have these like robots that would come at me, and they'd start shooting their gun at me. And I basically felt like it was like, I'm shooting, they're shooting, and it's just a matter of shoot, 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 shoot. They're shoot, 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 shoot. It's like a shoot, shoot versus shoot, shoot thing. And it's like, so who's going to wear who down first? Now, I will admit this, I wasn't using my EMP blast. I wasn't using like a special shield. Like I wasn't using a lot of these special things. I wasn't doing the melee thing. Like you can smack people with melee. I was just shooting for the most part. I did have a super that I could activate that shot this like huge beam out of my pod. I did use that a few times. Like hearing people comment on what I had to say about it, I think it's maybe just a case of I haven't learned how to use my EMP and all. And it takes a while, you know. I mean, you get into these games, they have so many different controls you got to learn. And until you finally get comfortable with the controls, you might think things are kind of crappy because you haven't adjusted, you haven't gotten used to the controls. And so I had a little bit of that problem with it. I definitely want to go back in it. It's kind of expensive, but there's a reason it's expensive. This is trying to do a sci-fi movie, iRobot kind of thing, and it does pretty good job.
I mean, I think Anthony, you in order to really be successful at this game, I think you have to, like, the game is, because like you say, you shoot. It's not about navigating the terrain and playing it like a Battlefield game or something. I think you have to use those mechanisms, and that's what I referred to earlier. Your EMP, your special power, and then keep hitting that shield regeneration button. Like it's about using all those things together, almost in a strategic sense. It's got a strategic element to it, and they've clearly designed the game around, or at least the combat around that whole aspect.
I think it's a great game, honestly. I think there's a lot to it, a lot more than first you see on the surface, anyway. And it's always good to dive into these kind of things, anyway.